What's up guys, as is tradition, let's go ahead and compare the biggest and best offerings from both Samsung and Apple in this video. The Samsung Galaxy Note 8 and Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus versus the iPhone 10, the 10th anniversary iPhone. Now these things are extremely similar, they're selling at very similar price points, they're direct competitors to one another, but at the same time they couldn't be any more different. So that's why this is such a difficult video to make, but I still wanted to make it. Now I wanted to preface this video by saying I'm not promoted by either Samsung or Apple. They do not pay me. They do not send me free products. I do not get pleasure from, having one win over one thing or the other do something better than the other. I mean, I'm just going to talk about these phones, how they compete on paper, and let you guys decide for yourselves which one is better for you. I'm not trying to promote one or the other, guys. So anyways, let's go ahead and see how these compare features, design, software, everything wise in one little video. And I'm lumping the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 and S8 Plus together into one just because they're very similar. Aside from a 0.1 inch screen difference, a dual lens camera that's not all too different in testing, and a stylus, they're pretty much the same phone on the inside. So I'll be comparing them both in one video just to make things a little bit easier. I wanted to start with build and durability. The iPhone 10 has a stainless steel border, something unheard of in smartphones. I mean, the Essential phone has a titanium border, but this is stainless steel. We don't hear about that much. This guy has an aluminum one. It's equivalent to aluminum 7000 in my earlier drop tests. Quite tough for aluminum, but still can gouge pretty easily, can dent. So I will be interested in seeing how these do compare in a drop test. As for the display materials, this has a Gorilla Glass 5 material, which is pretty durable. 80% of the time, from 5 feet, your phone will survive, according to Corning. Now, this guy has a new glass that Apple says is the toughest glass in the smartphone market right now. That's amazing. That's an amazing claim. I would really like to test that. Water resistance here is not on the same page. The iPhone X has an IP67 rating, unfortunately, which was rumored to be the IP68 rating of the Note 8 and Galaxy S8 Plus. So this guy can go 5 feet underwater for 30 minutes and survive. This guy can only go 3 feet. So quite a divide there, unfortunately. Not as pool friendly, the iPhone 10. Now, comfort and usability. The iPhone 10 is a device that can easily fit in the palm of your hand. And for me, I can reach almost every area of the display with one finger. That is amazing. This is a phone that's definitely not made to be used with one hand. I mean, you got to stretch so far just to get anywhere. And of course, it has a stylus, so it's not really meant to be used with one hand. It's meant to be precisely manipulated with this stylus, to get a bigger picture, to multitask, and that's not something you can do effectively with one hand. So these definitely have a different approach to the displays. You've got a 5.8 inch one here, 6.3 inch here. It's huge, really. But believe it or not, this thing is beating out the iPhone 10 in terms of screen to body ratio. The Note 8 has an 83.2 versus an 82.9 screen to body ratio, just barely winning over the iPhone 10. And as far as unique screen technology goes, each have their own. So the iPhone 10 has the True Tone display, which will match the color temperature of your display to your ambience. It does also have 3D touch everywhere on the display, and it does support Dolby Vision for its HDR display. Now, the Galaxy Note 8 has that curved edge display, which you can use for several shortcuts. It's kind of handy in some cases, not too much. It has the stylus, of course, which you can use to manipulate the display. Very nice to have that. And it does have a 3D touch equivalent as well, but only on the bottom row to activate the home button. As far as screen resolution goes and sharpness, the Note 8 definitely wins out here with a QHD display. The iPhone 10 is just a little short with a 463 pixel density versus 522. Your content is going to appear a little bit crisper on the Galaxy Note 8, while the iPhone 10 is no slouch. I mean, 463 is still an improvement over 401 on the Plus series iPhones. And I thought it important to mention brightness of the organic LED displays. This technology is known for being a little dim at times, but Samsung's been perfecting the craft for a very long time. This is the 7th or 8th generation of their panels, and it's rated at 1200 nits. This guy is just 625. That is half of the brightness of this in certain situations. So that's definitely going to be a tough battle, especially in sunlight. You're going to want a brighter display. And the Galaxy S8 is just shortly behind the Note 8 at 1000 nits in ratings. And depending on which market you're in, you're going to get a different colored phone for the Galaxy series. I know the Note 8 comes in a gray, a blue, a gold, and a black, and the S8 comes in even more colors, while this guy just comes in two, silver and a space gray, otherwise almost a black. So unfortunately there was no third color option, the gold for this guy, just two. Now the cameras on these guys are actually incredibly similar. So both are 12 megapixels, both are dual camera sensors, both have dual optical image stabilization to give you that steady shot whether you're zooming or all the way zoomed out. The Galaxy Note 8 has one slight advantage here in low light. The aperture is 0.1 stop better. So lower, we've got a 1.7 and a 2.4 versus a 1.8 and a 2.4 on the iPhone 10. The iPhone 10 is more capable here. This is something I'm very proud to say Apple has worked very hard on with a new engine just for handling this kind of stuff. It can do 4K at 60 frames per second, whereas this guy can only do 30, and this can do 1080 at 240 frames per second. That is some very sharp, very incredible slow motion video. The actual flash unit too on the back of the iPhone 10 has been improved. It's still a 4x flash, 4 LED flash, but it has a 2x uniformity. So when you take a picture in the dark, it's going to look 2x as good as it places that flash where it needs to be. This guy is just a dual LED flash. While it's very bright, very good, it doesn't quite match the iPhone 10. Now turning to the front cameras, the Galaxy Note 8 does have a more powerful shooter here. 8 megapixels versus 7 on the iPhone 10. It's capable of QHD video at 30 frames per second, whereas this guy just has 1080p, and it's got a better low light capability. So the aperture goes down to 1.7 versus 2.2 on the iPhone 10. Although this guy does have a portrait mode for the front, both do have that feature for the rear cameras. This one does have one for the front, as well as the new light portrait mode, which you can adjust the lighting and stuff like that. This guy does not have an equivalent for that. And not to mention the new Animojis, the 3D facial tracking, which is a biometric safety feature, but also a really cool camera feature as well, something that this guy cannot compete with. So as far as biometrics go, this does have a Touch ID sensor or fingerprint sensor on the rear. This does not have a fingerprint sensor anymore, removing that convenience factor. Although in this guy, the placement just kind of sucks, but it does make up for it with iris scanning. So if you want to have a Face ID equivalent, you do on the Note 8. This does not have iris scanning, but it has 3D facial modeling, which is also a great way to unlock your device securely. Now LTE. Apple actually caught up on the LTE speeds, as the official LTE speed of this guy is now 1 gigabit, matching this with a 150 megabit upload on both. And moving on to processors, this is truly one place that Apple dominates. They claim that the Apple A10 is the world's fastest smartphone processor, period, right now. In fact, in a test, the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 lost out in a real-world test to the iPhone 7 Plus. Can you imagine a processor that's 25% faster for the faster CPU cores and 70% faster for the lower-end, slower CPU cores? In fact, one of the slower CPU cores on the iPhone 10 is equivalent to a regular core on this guy. That is just incredible. So I will, of course, do a dedicated speed test down the road, but just on paper, Apple claims this thing is 25% faster right now than the iPhone 7 Plus. So we'll definitely have to test that out, but it seems like there's probably no contest here. And by the way, this is an 8-core processor. This is a 6-core. There are 4 fast, 4 slow cores here, 2 fast and 4 slow on the iPhone 10. And as far as RAM goes, 3 gigabytes rumored, found in the code for the iPhone 10, which is most likely correct, as everything else was also. And the Note 8 has 6, with the Galaxy S8 having 4. The Galaxy S8 does have an issue with reloading apps. Once you start loading many, it completely reloads them, doesn't save where you left off. The Note 8 fixes this issue by having an additional 2 gigabytes of RAM. And getting into some of the other stuff. So one of the things that I'm very proud of about the iPhone 8 is having stereo speakers. Not many smartphones nowadays have stereo speakers, so it's really great. And they're 25% louder than the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus and have more bass now as well. But the Note 8 does make up for that with the headphone jack. Unfortunately, the iPhone 10 still does not have one. It will not get one anymore. So for the people that haven't updated to a full Bluetooth lifestyle, having that headphone jack probably is a convenience factor. And something I wanted to mention about the iPhone 10, you really can't put a price on convenience. And the W2 chip and upgrade over the W1 in the iPhone 10 is amazing. It now has 85% faster Wi-Fi and 50% more efficient Bluetooth, which means your connections to your products are only going to get faster now. That is awesome, and that is something that I absolutely love. The instant pairing with AirPods, with compatible products, Really cool. As far as storage goes, this comes in 64 and 256 gigabyte flavors. This comes in 64, 128, and 256, depending on what market you're in, but also does have expandable storage. And that is a convenience factor you can also not put a price tag on, because you can upgrade your storage to whatever you want. SanDisk just came out with a 400 gigabyte micro SD card, and you better bet a lot of people will be putting that into this thing, exceeding the storage on the iPhone 10. Now, battery life, it's hard to measure because we don't know the actual milliamp content of the iPhone 10 battery, but in specs, it's pretty close. You get 21 hours of talk on the iPhone 10 versus 22 on the Galaxy Note 8, and 60 hours of music playback versus 74 on the Note 8. Definitely does have a bigger battery than this guy, and the specs are slightly better too. And fast charging, I'm actually quite surprised. In 30 minutes, you can get 50% battery life on the iPhone 10, while on the Note 8, that takes about 40 minutes. Just because Samsung hasn't adopted Quick Charge 3.0 or 4.0 yet, they're still using the 2.0 equivalent of Samsung Adaptive Fast Charging, which is 40 minutes half charge about. And some other things that make the iPhone 10 stand out: the Taptic engine. It's definitely a more prominent vibration motor. You definitely feel it more. It gives you more feedback than a standard vibration motor like in the Note 8. There's also the new Animojis, facial tracking. That is definitely a cool thing, 2 years ahead of the competition apparently. And the portrait light mode, very cool, but I'm sure Samsung will add something like that in the future, possibly even in an update. The Galaxy Note 8 has a stylus, which is a convenience factor on its own. Multitasking with this thing is much easier, not to mention split screen multitasking. You get an always on display with the organic LED display on lock screen, something of course Apple could add in the future, but don't have currently. There's a USB-C port, which means you can charge your laptop, your phone, anything with this same port. USB-C is becoming the standard, and Apple is still resisting it with their Lightning port. You can dock this thing and it becomes a literal computer. And price. So pricing here is actually pretty similar. The Galaxy Note 8 comes in at $929 on some carriers and jumps up to about $960 on others. This thing starts at $999 and then expands beyond that. You definitely get some things that you don't get on the other. They're pretty similar. Software, of course, sets them apart in more ways, but I'm not going to get into too much of that because it's mostly an Android versus iOS debate there. But I gotta say, both great phones. I love that they both do something that the other doesn't, giving you a reason to get one or the other. They are very similar phones, both with their bezel-less displays or close to bezel-less displays, massive batteries, wireless charging, dual cameras with dual OIS on both. Both have facial recognition. This one has iris, this one has actual facial recognition. Both have fast charging. I mean, they are pretty similar phones. It's once you get into the details that you learn the ups and downs of each other. So hopefully this video made that a little bit easier for you deciding between these phones. If you're at heart an Android person, it's going to be hard for you to switch over to the iPhone, but hopefully the adoption of wireless, fast charging, and the organic LED display has made that easier. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned. And if you're trying to decide between a 10 and an 8 Plus, be sure to check out that video that I compared those. Anyways, you guys got at least a month to decide between these phones if you haven't already. Peace.